Now we'll talk about 5 components of discrete trial training. Number one being the antecedent, the stimulus that comes before the behavior, the response. This is the signal, the situation that elicits a response from a person. Uh, it doesn't have to be an instruction, it could be a situation, but it's basically what happens before the behavior occurs, what triggers it. Now, of course, you could tell someone, clap your hands, and that's a very clear antecedent because it's an instruction, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It can also be, let's say I'm teaching someone to say hi when they see somebody. So the antecedent would be, let's say, a person coming through the door and entering a room. At that point, the student will have to say hi. So the antecedent can actually be a situation too. Number two, prompt, assistance given to ensure completion of task. Um, it's basically the help we provide when students are either learning a new skill or when they're having difficulty. Basically, it's help. It's helping someone to complete a task to be successful. And this is something that we utilize all the time to ensure success, to maintain success for students so they're having a good time when they're learning. No, nobody likes to have a tough time when they're learning. Believe me, learning should be fun. If the student, let's say, they're not looking correctly and they're not looking at the stuff they're presented with, sometimes we think, oh, move it closer to them. But maybe if the student is not really looking at the field, maybe let's say the objects are placed too close to them and they're looking directly at the therapist, maybe it's better to prompt by moving things further away. But we'll get into that later on when we get into prompting. Number three would be the response. So this is the B, behavior resulting from the antecedent. It can be a correct response, which means the appropriate thing to do upon meeting the antecedent. It could be an incorrect response. It could also be incorrect behavior, but it's basically any behavior that follows an A. And then next there's a feedback, which is the information given according to resulting response. Now, this is to tell someone whether they're right or wrong. It could be by words, it could be by consequence, but this shapes the next response when the same antecedent occurs. And lastly, there's the intertrial interval, which is the time between one trial to the next. Now, it serves as a time to evaluate the trial itself, and we'll get into that further on as we move on with the training. So, how do we apply um, discrete trial? So, number one, we're taking a skill and we're breaking it down into very small steps, and we're teaching one sub step at a time. And basically, this is what we call task analysis. Um, Example would be brushing teeth. Uh, you know, what item did we start with? So, do we really think about that when we start brushing teeth normally? But if we're teaching the way we do with discrete trial, we must do a task analysis, which is once again listing all the steps and thinking thoroughly before we start. Um, do you take the toothbrush or the toothpaste? So, for example, a lot of people will say, oh, it's inconsequential. You take up the toothbrush and the toothpaste and you squeeze. But hang on a second, when you've taken both up, which hand do you open the toothpaste with? You haven't thought that up yet. So, okay, we think about taking up toothpaste first because we need to open a cap. But also, we need to think about whether it's a flip cap or twist cap because there's a fine motor skill difference. So, we definitely need to think thoroughly what the steps are. So, when we're breaking things down, that's what we need to do. And then afterwards, we're teaching one sub skill at a time. And, that's just naturally, for example, if you're swimming, you definitely if you're a beginning swimmer, we're not going to throw you to the deep end of the pool. We may go to the kiddie pool, and you may just start with just pinching your nose and dipping your head in just to get it wet. We definitely would teach one small step at a time. We definitely would not throw someone in the deep end when they don't know how to swim. Next, we provide concentrated teaching, and we provide the necessary practice. And with ABA, I think there's a lot of critique about things being robotic and repetitive, but you know, on the same token, if you think about it, if you were to train for a marathon, if you have a marathon to run the next day, you certainly wouldn't just train the day before. You would train months before to condition your body for that kind of grueling task. And it's the same thing with learning, with ABA, with discrete trial. Practice is actually a must. And there's nothing wrong with practice because practice makes perfect. And then, of course, next we provide prompt. We prompt when students are having a difficult time, when they're learning something new. When you're learning a new language, for example, it's your first time learning how to say hi when you're in France. So immediately the teacher may just simply say, okay, everyone copy me, bonjour. Um, the teacher would not simply just request for you to say, oh, say good day in French right away. The teacher will likely give an example follow. And that's a really good prompt because demonstration is probably one of the best prompting strategies. Same thing when you're riding a bike when you're a kid. Think about it. Your father or your mom didn't just put you on a bike and shoved you down the street. Very likely you had training wheels to begin with, and mom and dad maybe held you on the side to make sure you didn't fall. And gradually you faded out being held, and gradually you fade out the wheels. And that's what prompting is about. How to provide necessary um, help to be successful at the same time, how to take it back away to create independence. And lastly, we use reinforcement. It's to give incentive to motivate students, and we all need motivation to do things, especially to make change. So we'll get into that later on. And here are some examples of three-term contingencies. So, and we're looking right now at instruction, response, and feedback. So, number one, copy me. So the therapist will say, copy me, and then we'll do an action. And then the child imitates, at which point we say, good job as a feedback. At the same time, the student may get a reinforcer. They may get a toy. Same thing, we would say, do this, and let's say the child did not provide a response, and then we'll tell them you need to listen. And here are some video examples.
Copy me. Good job. Copy me. Hey, you need to listen.
Some skills are commonly taught using DTT. There's verbal behavior, listening, responding, so receptive language, matching, imitation, academic skills, and there's so much more that we can cover. And here's some more examples we'll bring up. But with verbal behavior, we're looking at pure echoics right now, for someone to just purely imitate, to copy what you're saying. So the teacher says banana, and the student says banana, at which point, because they've echoed, we will provide a reinforcer. Here's a video example.
Banana.
Banana.
Very good saying banana. You.
Other examples of verbal behavior, echoic demand. So we're teaching the student how to ask for help. So a teacher says, help me. We create a situation at which point, let's say I may put a toy very high up somewhere and the student can't get to it. And the student has a desire to get it, at which point I will help them echo, help me. And the student will echo what I said, help me, at which point I help them to, let's say, get a toy from up top. So that will be echoic demand. So it's something that they're trying to demand for, but we're giving them echoic to start. And here's an example.
Help me.
Help me.
Sure.
Example, listener responding. Match to sample. Teacher says match, so we'll deliver an object to the student, and they're to once again put it on the table to find the one that's visually similar. Once again, correct response, the teacher provides praise and tangibles. And here's a video example.
Match. Yes, nice matching. For you.
Well, some academic skills that we may train would be counting. So I may put several objects out, and let's say the teacher would say, count the bears. The learner would then count and say 4. So we will count 1, 2, 3, 4. And then once again, correct response, reinforcement. Here's the video example.
Count the blocks.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, nice counting. For you.